Hello everyone, this is a tutorial for seaming together the lining of my headband pattern. As you can see, it's got the cables and the ribs on the outside, and then the inside is just a plain stockinette lining, and I seam it together right down the middle. Alright, so I just finished knitting the second half of the lining, so now I'm going to turn it inside out so that the lining is facing me, and sew the edges together. Okay, this is a Kitchener stitch, I think is what it's called, so that it kind of creates an invisible knit row that seams your two pieces together. It uses quite a bit of yarn, so I like to measure at least 4 times the length of the seam that I'm going to be sewing, just so that I know I have enough, because I don't want to pretend to try to figure out how and add more yarn in the middle of the seam. So let's see. This is the cast on edge from when we began the headband, so that's going to show us kind of where things line up to the start of this row. When you're looking at the knit stitches, you can see that they look like little V's or the little mountain tops. You're going to sew by going behind the little mountain tops, as I call them, not the V. Let me show you what I mean. So you're going to tuck the needle behind the mountain top. You're not going to tuck the needle behind one of the V's. That'll make sense as we go, but it also is not 100% necessary. It's just that makes things line up correctly. That's what happened on this one. You can still kind of see the seam, but that is lined up so that they're all facing the same way. This one, not so much, but you can see that there is a definite seam to it, but in the end, it's on the inside, not going to destroy your world. Okay. So, your working yarn here, come down and tuck behind one of the mountain tops and pull it all the way through. You want to kind of keep your tension even with the tension of the stitches that you've knit, because otherwise you will see it. It'll be pulled tight or it'll be too loose, but again, not the end of the world. It'll just take some practice. Then you want to go behind the stitch, the next working stitch on the top, and slip it off the needle. Go ahead and pull it all the way through. Okay. Now we come back down to where we went behind the mountain, and we're going to stab right back down into where our yarn came out and go behind the next mountain. You'll see what I mean, because you're going to be doing this quite a few times around this headband. Pull it through and then kind of even out your tension. We don't want that long strand there. So I'm going to snug it down. Okay, now we go back up and go behind. You actually take the knit stitch that you slipped off of the needle, stab back down through the center of that, take the next stitch off the needle, so you're going through 2 of them on the top layer, which would be going behind the valley as the top there. As you can see, there's a little V right there. It's kind of how you're creating this knit row. Then we come back down to where we came out of the bottom row, stab back down through there, and go behind one of the mountains and pull it through. For the top, go back through the stitch we just pulled off, take the next one off, and pull it through. Back down where we came out, behind a mountain, pull it through. Back through the stitch we just pulled off, pull off the next one, and pull it through. You get kind of into a rhythm of where you're going. Once you get the first few stitches set up, then you just, okay, I came out here, let me stab back down here. I just went through here, let's go back through the middle of that one, pull the next one off. You get yourself into a little bit of a rhythm. And you're going to go around this entire thing, but you can see that the seam row that we're sewing looks like it's a part of the knit stitches. Okay, I'm going to do this next stitch extremely slow because I know if you've never done this before, it is very confusing. I don't know how many times it took me to learn this. Okay, so we have our working yarn up here. We're going to stab down through where we came out of on the previous stitch, stab back down through that spot, go behind a mountain. So we've got this inverted V here. Pull your yarn through. You don't want to pull too tight. You want to kind of match the tension of the other stitches so it looks the same. Okay, now this is the working yarn that we're pulling. As you can see, it comes through this loop right here, which was a stitch on the needle. So we're going to go back down through the middle of this, right next to where we came up. Take the next stitch off the needle and run it through there. Now we've created this loop right here. Okay, and go back down through where we just came out. Make our little mountain. Stab back through the stitch we took off the needle. Take the next one off the needle. And this is your seam. When you're done with it, you'll be back around to the beginning of this, and I just stabbed through the next stitch along with this last stitch so it looks like the last complete stitch, and sew the end in. And it's pretty invisible but very stretchy seam.